How's the Sparky recap here? I'm Kobe Bronstein alongside Aiden Blank. Arizona State football 2-0 in the season, and they get their first ever victory against an SEC opponent in Mississippi State.
Yeah, it's hard to believe it's been this long. It's been a while since they played an SEC opponent. They're going to have a home-and-home with these guys the next 2 years. Thought it started out very well. First half, obviously, you set the tone, and I don't think anybody was expecting this kind of game from Arizona State. They certainly proved a lot of things to a lot of people. Came as 5.5-point favorite, but it still kind of feels like you stole one tonight that you really shouldn't have won.
Mississippi State was 1-0 previously, coming into today's game, a 56-7 victory against Eastern Kentucky. ASU won 48-7 last week against Wyoming. Now, we'll take a look at next week's game. ASU, a very quick turnaround, one of their quickest turnarounds of the season, on Thursday at Texas State. What can the team and the fans expect from Arizona State?
It's going to be tough. Texas State is a good team. They won with 49 points today over UTSA at home, so it's not like you're going in and just going to get one of these wins. It's going to be a short week. A lot of guys that played tonight got banged up a little bit, injured. We'll see how things work out on Monday with the injury report, but this is going to be a very tough week. It's really going to test the strength of your team, and then you have a chance to reset because you have a long week. You don't play till the following Saturday, but Texas State's a good team, and I think if you're not careful and you have, like Kenny had said earlier in the week, we had a 1-11 practice. You have one of those 1-11 practices then leads to a 1-11 game, you could potentially get beat. I don't think Thursday's you're going to win this game at all. I think you should win the game, but that kind of week, it's going to be tricky.
You mentioned a lot of the guys getting potentially banged up tonight, but one guy that really shouldered the load was Cam Scadaboo. I mean, it was a game of Cam Scadaboo today, his coming out party. We know how successful he's been across his college career, and he just broke the 3,000-yard barrier in terms of his career at Sacramento State and ASU. 33 carries, over 260 yards. It was just his night.
It was, and if Cam Scadaboo's not on the field, they don't win the game, plain and simple. There were a lot of warnings with this Mississippi State team last week. They gave up over 300 yards rushing to an Eastern Kentucky team they should not have given up 300 rushing yards to. There were some warning signs that this was going to happen. The first, really, 2 quarters and a little bit of the third quarter of this game, they looked completely unsure of what to do. They were rushing 3 most of the plays when they really should have been packing the box. They look lost. And it's very strange because you knew the scouting report was they're going to run on you a lot. I knew Arizona State obviously had the advantage at the line. The defensive linemen for Mississippi State far less skilled and experienced than the offensive linemen for Arizona State. Arizona State demolished them. I'm up there calling the game. Almost every time that Cam Scadaboo or even DeCarlos Burks had the football, I had to go all the way down to the bottom of my score sheet to look at who the tackler was for Mississippi State, because almost every time they were getting past the first and second layers, getting to the cornerbacks, getting to the safeties, and it really caused a lot of problems that we'll see if any of these other teams have. I'm very curious to see how the run game gets handled going forward, if some teams decide early on to stack the box, or they continue to kind of let Arizona State run the football, which clearly did not work tonight.
Yeah, it was just an offensive onslaught, and really ASU was running the ball down the throats of Mississippi State. And Kenny Dillingham in his post-game presser was talking about running Cam Scadaboo into the ground, but that's how the game plan played out. And then he also mentioned Sam Leavitt not getting into a rhythm. Is that what you saw tonight from Leavitt, and the fact that he went 10 for 20 and just 69 yards on the entire night?
First of all, he didn't need to throw 100 yards tonight. It just wasn't necessary. This wasn't one of those games. He looked much better last week. But it's also, you're right, hard to get into a rhythm when you're handing the football off on almost every play, and then all of a sudden you're asked to throw it. There were a couple of positions I thought it was very strange to call a pass. First drive towards the end of the drive that ended up winning the game, when they threw a pass out of bounds, it seemed a little bit strange when you needed to run the clock a little bit. No, Sam didn't look good tonight, but I would imagine the fatigue of these running backs, we'll see if it sets in Thursday. He's going to need to step up a little bit on Thursday, and has a chance to prove himself when the passing game should be a little bit more needed in that game. But no, he didn't look good tonight, and that's something that, if it continues to persist down the stretch, is going to be a little bit of a problem.
Right, and you mentioned that the passing attack was not needed tonight for Leavitt, but he had 2 rushing touchdowns on the ground. He proved his athleticism and just really being able to be aggressive running the ball and taking a lot of contacts and continuing to churn out for more yards.
The first drive of the game, he goes out there and he runs a couple of plays, and all of a sudden 17-yard scamper. I thought he really looked good. And we knew he was a good runner. He ran a little bit last week, but man, he's a really experienced runner, very athletic quarterback. That's not something that Arizona State had with anybody last year who played that quarterback position. So I thought that was a very important thing for him to do. I will say, and Mississippi State had a very similar situation with their quarterback, Blake Shapen, even last week. He put himself in a lot of risky situations. He gave himself up a lot. He didn't give himself up enough. He didn't slide enough. He got himself into some very bad situations. And you just really would rather him not do that, especially in a game like this when you're up 27 points. Blake Shapen had the same thing last week, and the coaching staff sat him down during the week and said, hey, let's maybe not do this. We don't really have second and third string quarterbacks that are capable. Let's, be a little bit more cautious. We like that you're running. And I'm wondering if maybe that conversation is having on Arizona State side this week.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned limiting the mistakes and the damage and trying to give the other team opportunities to continue to score, put points on the board, and also, again, Coach Kenny Dillingham in his post-game presser mentioned the poise of Cam Scottaboo in the end to go down and slide when he could have scored another touchdown, scampered for 50 or 60 yards already on that play, and instead the veteran poise from him, and that's what Kenny Dillingham said is potentially going to take him to the NFL, where we'll see him play on Sundays. The last thing I wanted to point out was the possession time. ASU with over 40 minutes of offense as a team, and Mississippi State not even 20. It was just dominant offensively from ASU, and they had these really long drives they were putting together, and they amounted into points almost every time.
Yeah, that was not new for Mississippi State offensively. They had the ball for an average of about a minute 49 last week in their possessions offensively. The difference was they had around the same number of time average defensively on their possessions last week, and that just didn't happen tonight. So the offense is just moving quick, and they actually almost got penalized. They got a warning for being too fast and going before the ref sat down. That's how they're going to beat teams if they do this season. The problem is Arizona State then said, all right, well, we're not giving you the football back for another 14, 15 minutes, so you can take your 2-minute drive. We're going to keep the football for the rest of the quarter, and that's in the end really just what Mississippi State wasn't prepared for. They're not nearly experienced enough at any aspect of their defense with these transfers and these rookies to be able to stay on the field for 7-8 minute possessions. Arizona State knew that. They ran the football a lot. They took their time on the possessions, and that's in the end what really killed Mississippi State in the first half. Yeah,
ASU, Coach Kenny Dillingham and the rest of the staff, a really, really intelligent game plan towards the end of the stretch where Arizona State was able to get a 30-23 victory. They squeaked it out as opposed to when they had a 27-point lead earlier on. It was 27-3, so a 24-point advantage for Arizona State, and that dwindled down to a one-possession game, but Arizona State improves to 2-0. They take on Texas State next this upcoming Thursday. Mississippi State needs to go back to the drawing board. They're 1-1. That's Aiden Blank. I'm Kobe Bronstein. That's your post-game report at Mountain America Stadium. Arizona State 30, Mississippi State 23.